So I spent the last 30 days focusing my evenings and weekends basically rewriting an application that is north of 200,000 plus lines of code. It's a little bit over that. It's about 250 when you kind of put all the applications together. But it's safe to say 100% certain of like core code, about 200,000 lines of code. So in this video, what I want to do is to kind of walk through sort of my experience in rewriting an entire application in 30 days. Now, full disclosure, it's not 100% up, but this is just sort of like my raw, true experience about how much progress I've made, how I've managed to literally re-architect the entire application, my progress for swapping out the entire backend, and just kind of just showing you sort of like the pros and cons of that entire process. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. We'll talk about it in this video. This is a little bit of me just offsetting my just thought process, so I might be a real rambly, but hopefully you'll get some value out of this video. And if you do, please like and subscribe if you're interested in this type of stuff. I talk about all kinds of productivity things. Okay, let's just get right into it. All right, so just to show that I'm not BSing you in any single way, actually, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the actual application. I'll give you some context. So I actually run a startup. My startup is a company that basically focuses on productivity tools for construction type workers. That being said, I've recently come to the thought process that this application can actually serve a broader market, and so that's part of my reason for re-architecting things, in addition to a few other internal things that I won't necessarily go into in this conversation. So anyway, at a very, very high level, the tool basically is responsible for kind of keeping track of new calls that are coming in, calls that were dispatched, completed to be invoiced, etc. You can manage sort of like projects. So this is a work order here with details, and there's notes, invoicing. You could do service material. It just goes on and on. And then you could print and preview this stuff. And one of the things that I actually pride myself on in the background of this application is that it actually literally opens up Microsoft Word, generates data onto it, and then close it, and then gives you a PDF version. And that happened just in that time that I clicked that button there. So these are some of the things overall of how the application works. Now, this is not a tutorial. I'm not trying to sell you on this entire product or anything. I'm just trying to tell you literally how I re-architect the entire application on the back end, just so you understand sort of details. It just goes on and on. You could do quotations in here. You could manage your clients. It's a full-on business management system, and the ability to sort of manage your inventory and stuff. So that's kind of the core. However, this application has been around for a while, and we've had varying success with it. I won't go into all that detail. This is not the conversation for it, but we've had varying success with the application across the board. So let me just kind of give you some context on how the system is run. This application has been around for a while. So the original version was actually written in like 2012. It's been a while, and we've had it started, just to give you some context, it started out as like an application that was like, we charge a client like $10,000 to develop it, and then fast forward, it turned into like a $500,000 solution where we just kept building and building and building and building, and then we kind of grew, and then we scaled down, and then we grew again, and then we scaled. It's just been sort of a roller coaster ride in that regard. Nonetheless, the application is large, lots of complexities. We've had numerous set of developers worked on it over the years, and I've come to the conclusion that it needs a complete rewrite from the ground up. That's basically what I came to the conclusion. So that's the reason why I'm doing this, and that's the reason why we're having this conversation. Okay, hopefully I've level set enough so you can understand what's going on. And this, by the way, this is real, actual, real world type code. So I have some notes here so I don't kind of ramble too much. I want to be very structured and give you some sort of real, actual, tangible thing. Here, these are my YouTube sort of potential titles. We'll decide which one actually goes out on the internet. So describe the application, did that before. Okay, describe the problem. So what are the problems that we have with this application? Okay, first of all, it works fairly well today. It's a pretty fast application for what it does. So I got 3,500 records inside of here. I could come in here, I could do a filter by a specific client. I could filter by a job type or something like that. I could reset here. This is just resetting the entire dashboard itself. I could click on a, oh, what happened here? Okay, just taking a while. I was like, oh, it's fast, and yeah, then it's running slow. So I click on 57 here, and that will basically kind of filter out those jobs for those new service calls, etc. So it's written in Vue on the front end, Vue.js on the front end, and on the back end, it's a .NET application, true and true. However, the original application was like in .NET 4.8. It actually started out like 3.5 or something like that, and it's kind of worked its way up to 4.8. So it's been upgraded over the years. So there's .NET framework running in the background, and then when Microsoft changed, we upgraded and we kind of jumped on all the ASP.NET Core stuff, and then from there we went into Azure Functions land, and we've been kind of sitting in the Azure Functions land for a really long time. And I have some thoughts on that, by the way, which I'm more than happy to share. But that's kind of the short answer here in terms of like what are the problems is that it's just there's a lots of varying different types of technologies that's kind of span literally a decade, and as a result of that, all kinds of business ideas are just kind of sort of muddied all over the place. And to add insult to injury, the API surface is just really large, just really large. So I'll give you sort of an example when my Postman kind of comes up, but the API service is really large. We have lots and lots of different so if you see here, we have print and you know, billing and APIs, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on of all the different types of different APIs that exist. I won't go into too much here, just so you understand sort of the context. And so I've been having these fundamental conversations around what would it take to rebuild this entire thing. What would it take to rebuild this entire thing? And one last point, and I'm jumping just a teeny bit here. I want to actually show you that I'm not BSing you when in terms of like the amount of code that actually exists. So I found out that I have a PowerShell script that can actually tell you how much code is in an application. So if you run this get child recursive, every single thing that's here, and then you count the number of lines, it'll actually tell you. I'm not going to do it for this application here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for this application here, which is the main application. And then I'll do it for the second one, because there's two. Like I said, there's a .NET ASP.NET application, and then there's a .NET Framework application. So that's called Project Earth. We name our projects after planets. And right, yes, of course, it's need a PowerShell command. CD snap suite Project Earth. Ignore all this stuff here. This is just I've been messing around with my terminal and I made some stupid errors. CD. Oh my goodness. Let's do this. Right. So, oops. Okay. So just so you know that I'm not BSing you here. Okay, so the PowerShell script is going to figure out all the different CS, and it's going to come back with a number, right? So here, 114,000, right, lines of code, right? So that's in that application, and then the second one, which is Saturn. Hopefully, I'm not showing any trade secrets here. My trade secret, there's no trade secret here, but I mean, you know, security information or whatever. So here I want to CD, do the same thing, and then I'm going to run the same lines of code. Come on, there. Okay, not 100,000, right? So 214,000 if you want to just round it off in that regards, right? Lines of code, and that's just between two applications. It is actually a significantly more set of details. So just so you know, I'm not BSing you with the amount of code that's actually sitting in these two applications. Okay, so now you got that. Let me show you what I've been doing. So let's back up a little bit. So I created a brand new project, and it has a few goals, and I'll talk about them in a bit. But let me just kind of give you some, just kind of level setting so everybody's on the same page in terms of what the application was doing and things. So first of all, let me show you this project here. So insights. Actually, if I go back here, I think it shows you when it was created. No, So insights is probably where I gotta go. And then code frequency or commits here. Yes. Okay. So I started on the 26th of May 2004. Today is the 10th of July 2004. And this has been my trajectory in terms of like code additions and deletions. Okay. So I went from 5,000 to 10,000 to 15, right? 50 plus 20,000, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit as the application got a little bit larger. So just to show you that I'm not BSing you in terms of the amount of code that I've been able to write in an extremely short space of time. Okay, and traffic, no, sorry, I'm not familiar with all the thing here. So yeah, so this is sort of like the how it's been kind of tapering off as a complexity evolve, and I don't need to write some of that sort of what I consider boilerplate code. Things have kind of tapered off a little bit. Okay, so now you've gotten that out of the way. Let's talk about the actual details. Let's talk about how and what I've been doing and what I've been solving and how it's been going. All right, and just to make sure I'm on track, let me just look back at my notes so I don't think, because I want to be actually a little bit more structured. So experience running is, yeah, so I want to talk about this for a bit. So I have actually had the opportunity, so my developers, I got about 8 developers that have been using to run this application. And one of the problems is that you add a feature to the application, just takes so much time and energy and effort to go through all the different details to figure out a problem. So I knew for sure that if I were to just kind of hand it out to this project or entire developer, it just take too much time, right? So you can move faster as an individual rather than a thing. And the goal was to do one simple thing, which was to essentially build out as much infrastructure as possible, build out the infrastructure as much as I possibly can. Once I could get that infrastructure to scale and all the pieces are in place, then the developers could kind of fit in and jump in and kind of like hyper focus on the real details, right? Like that's sort of the core. All right. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what are some of the problems with the application. So let me give you one real world scenario right now. So let's just say I'm on the dashboard of this application and I want to create a new, not a new client, a new work order. So I'm going to reset this so we can see the whole everything. Reset. Yeah. Okay, it'll come in a sec. I think it's just sleeping because it's early morning here. So the systems are just kind of scaled down. So click on new work order. Okay, I'm going to choose anything. This is just a test database, right? So I'm going to say test description, and for YouTube, fake number. This is a fake number. They're not, it's not real data. I want to be clear with this. YouTube, this is not real data. Do not take my profile down. Every single thing in this application is fake. Sorry guys, just got to do that for the algorithm because they're going to label my content as being like personal information being thing. So here, I got a new work order. Okay, and if you notice, it just came up just about a second or so. Let me just do that again. Just pay attention to this, okay? So let me just change this status. How about this? Let's just change the status to from a new to something else, just so you could just kind of keep track of the it below. So I'm going to point it to appointment set or something, right? So this just change in a second. Okay, so let's do that again. Appointment book. There we go. Okay. I was trying to get a different color outside of the orange. Let's go with like completed to be invoice. Okay. So something where I know the color is completely different. Okay. So now when I click on new work order, pay attention to how long it takes for that work order below there to see. It's kind of hard to see, but we're gonna do our best. So just pay attention here. You'll see what happens. You'll see what that this will shift down one, right? And then you should see complete to be invoiced here because obviously a new job is there. YouTube, these are fake numbers. I just want to be clear with that. Fake information. Okay, click process in, and just pay attention. So successfully saved. So it just went in. Okay, so there. All right, that's not bad. Nothing's wrong with that. Seems every single thing is okay in here. Okay, so now let me explain from a backend architecture standpoint what's actually happening so you can get some context of what's going on. and then why I care about rewriting this application. So first of all, the front end is written in Nux. So front end or Vue, V-U-E. It's pretty fast. You click and save. What's happening on the back end is a couple of things. One is when we save the information, we're doing, so it's going to an Azure function, first of all. Okay. When it hits an Azure function, it does a couple of things. One, it goes to my favorite database, CosmoDB. I'll talk about that in another video, but CosmoDB is an Azure database. Z-U-R-E. Okay. So it goes to the Azure database on the back end. And then the second thing that it does is that it drops basically that information, the fact that it's thing on a service bus. Let's call it a queue, a topic, a queue, right? And that's it. That's what it does. It doesn't actually put it in the database. It just sends it, and it just gets an acknowledgement, and it comes back that it was successful. And we do this because there's a background service that kind of sits here. Background service kind of sits here, pulls the data off of that, and actually puts it into the database. Right? And this is great. This architecture actually worked really well. It still works. It's proper. There's nothing really wrong with it per se, except that there's a couple of use cases that we have on the application where when you click on, and not in a work order case, but in the case of a purchase order for sure, you might have a technician that's out on the road, and that technician might be trying to get a purchase order, right? So again, not trying to teach you the application here, just trying to work through the details. So I'm on a work order. I'm trying to create a purchase order, which is basically to buy some materials for a particular job. That's all that's going on here, right? So we're trying to buy some materials for the entire job. And now when I click on save, okay, what I actually care about for this purchase order is I actually want to give that purchase order to the guy that's on the road. And right now, there's no number that's associated with that purchase order. Now, interesting, by the time I get to this list purchase order section, there's going to be a number associated with it. Okay, so that's a new purchase order I just created. However, if you go back to the diagram, there's some background stuff that needs to happen, because remember at this particular point, when it saves it to the database, think of this as just a log, right? This is a log that we can replay. When it hits the database and it hits here, it goes into the database, and then it gets an ID. Okay, and that ID actually generates a number, right? And let's call it a PO number, a PO. Okay, that PO number is what this user is actually waiting for. But on this screen, the screen that they created that record, they can't get it because the data is not actually in the databases yet. Now this is happening in like seconds level, but the point is there is a delay, and that delay is actually creating some problems. So that's problem number one. That I want to solve. The second problem, this kind of problem with this architecture here, is sometimes the user sends data into the database. It rarely happens, but it happens. Just being real here. It happens, and then sometimes, for whatever reason, the data gets here because this database is pretty solid. But then for some reason, this never picks up that process. So in other words, the data never got to the database. And the user is sitting here, and they've gotten some kind of confirmation, right, that it was successful. And they're not wrong. It was successful, but it was a half success message. In other words, it went to the log, but it didn't actually go to the database itself. So that's a real problem, and we've experienced that in a couple of times. And as a result, what's happened is the users here start scratching their head, wondering why their data is not showing up on their dashboard. Okay. This is a rare thing, but it does happen. It does happen. Okay, and so as a result of that creates sort of this uncertainty. Did the application work? Did it not work? Right? It's just sort of like this kind of question mark. And the last thing you want is for your users to question whether the application worked or not. And then the last thing, which I can actually demonstrate this one, but it's along that same lines. This one annoys me, personally annoys me, because I know exactly what's happening. Okay, so here. I'm going to add a note. Let's just, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. So here, I'm going to add a note, okay? And look at what happens when I press on the save. I'm going to click add note, and you're going to see at the bottom here, it's going to add, and then it's going to disappear, and it's going to come back again. Look at it. There. 3, 2, 1, boom. See that? Okay? That annoys the hell out of me. And that's exactly what's happening as a result of this entire thing. Because what's happening is when that note actually gets committed, when the note gets committed here and it goes here, it's saved, right? The application is sitting there. It keeps, we just do pooling, so it just keeps checking the database for new data. So what happens is when you press the save button, it saves it locally in the browser for a second, but then this API makes a call at some point looking for new data, and it comes back, and then it's like, I don't have that information in the database, so it removes this. So it disappears because it's not there as yet. And while that's happening, just for, you know, a brief second or two, that data gets picked up by the queue. The queue basically picks up that information, finally puts it into the database. So the next time it makes a call, it shows it, and then therefore it disappears, and then it shows back up again. That annoys me. And it's not necessarily a big deal, but it's just so you could understand sort of like what's happening in the background, and that's why I've been focusing on re-architecting this entire application. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close this video off right now because it's getting too long, and I want to kind of keep these videos in sort of a little bit more bite-sized content. And what I'll do is in the next video, I'll do a little bit more deep dive into sort of how I've rewritten the application, more the ChatGPT angle of it, like what is the process I did to rewrite the application, and then two, sort of what are the things that I'm improving across the board. We're going to talk about that in the next application, next video, because I want to be a little bit more sort of like prescribed with the way that I'm doing these video content. Anyway, hopefully if you've gotten some value out of that, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I talk about productivity stuff, so I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a software developer, I'm every single thing, and I just got a bunch of random ideas, and I'm just kind of putting it out on the internet. And if you're just one that's just kind of looking for ideas and how to like do things across the board, whether it's from business to personal to meetings, etc., subscribe to the channel. I'll definitely try to help you out, and feel free to drop a comment once in a while. Let me know how you're feeling about my videos. Okay, thank you. I'll see you in the next video.